It's going to be much more efficient, but then at the same time, you don't want to go too deep either. So there's always a trade-off in there between how many items are on the list versus how deep you have to go. And you want to minimize the time people are on hold. Generally, after 30 seconds, you start seeing a big drop in the people who will stay on hold. They start hanging up very quickly. At 60 seconds, it doubles. At another 30 seconds, it doubles again. So you want to minimize how much time people spend on hold. Otherwise, you're going to start losing calls pretty quick. Hey, hey, hey. So keep it simple, no more than 3 menu choices. Again, that's not going to work in every environment. That's just kind of some best practices. Sometimes you just can't get around it. Good, clean recordings. Remember, when someone calls into that company, that IVR is the face of the company. That is going to tell someone whether that's a professional company or not, or whether it's just some fly-by-night company based on what they hear when they call in and their experience with that phone system. So if you want good recordings, there's a couple of companies downstairs that do system recordings. Allison, always a good choice because all the other prompts in the system are going to be Allison's. So the IVRvoice.com, she's not that expensive. And you can get really good, high-quality recordings that are going to give a good image to that customer. Now, how many of you guys do the recordings for your customers? Yeah. You know, and I've been asked to do it because I got a recording studio at home. But it just kills me that I can call up customers that I installed 4 years ago and hear my own voice still. Like, don't you guys ever change this stuff? I mean, never? So, and I don't know that some of those early ones were the best either. So, but they're still there, and I don't know why. But then walk through the design with everybody. Make sure it's exactly what people want. Is that a good flow that people are going to be comfortable with? Does it look like people are going to be stuck on hold? Does it, you know, kind of walk through it with each person, especially if it branches off to different departments. Go to that department and say, okay, here's how this is going to work. Kind of simulate it for them so that they have an understanding of how that experience is going to be for the person calling in. Last one there, to me that's important. Have a way that they can get to a human. Nothing irritates me more when I can't just, like, none of this options are what I'm looking for. I just need to talk to somebody. You know, 0, always a good call, you know, something like that. But I recommend that just because it is frustrating for people, and you don't want those callers to be frustrated. The quote. Some of the items to look for on the quote, I've already mentioned some of them. Overhead paging, probably the most overlooked piece of the puzzle today. I don't think any of the major players are downstairs right now. The two big ones that I see the most are CyberData and Valcom. Valcom's been around for, I mean, these are probably Valcom devices up in the ceiling here, back from the analog world. Now they've got IP devices. CyberData devices are really cool. They got the overheads, they got wall speakers, they got door buzzers, all the different types of devices that you could want, big bullhorns for parking lots, things like that. Valcom stuff is kind of a step up in that you can take a big set like this and create one virtual extension to page to it versus having to set up a ring group for all of the different ones. So that's kind of an advantage of the Valcom units. Did you account for the installation labor? One of the first mistakes I made, I think it was like the third job I ever did, was 65 phones, without thinking that it takes about a minute to pull a box out, assemble the phone, plug it in, take it over the desk, plug it into the network, and get the wiring done. Well, 65 phones, that's over an hour that I didn't account for of labor. Now, if you got more than that, that can add up over time. You know, so little things in the labor process. So I learned very quickly, take my son because he's too lazy to get a job, so I force him to do this stuff. But boy, can he provision extensions now. I'm telling you, he's really fast. So find ways of optimizing that labor. You know, if you're provisioning a bunch of phones and you've got a system like Switchvox or Trixbox Pro or any of these where you can put in a MAC address and provision the phones, get a cheap USB barcode reader. They're like 20 bucks. You eliminate user error typing in a MAC address, and it's going to be way faster to do something like that. So there's a lot of little tricks that you can use to speed up those deployment times. Do you need to work weekends and after hours? I don't know how many installs you guys have done, but the vast majority I've done have never been during 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. They're usually late evenings or weekends. So do I have to pay people more to be there after hours? Am I doing cable drops? 1 drop per net per spot or 2? Am I going pass through to the phones? How am I setting up that network and make sure that I account for all of those pieces? The quote design is probably the next biggest thing that I see people make mistakes on. How many of you do line item quotes? You all do full-on multi-page proposals? Is that what you're doing? That's what you should be doing, because that will separate you from everybody else out there. Now, back in our IT world, if we're going to sell somebody a workstation, we're going to have a little quote that says 1 Dell workstation, $800. It's not going to cut it with phones. You can't just say a PBX, X amount, 25 phones, this amount, and a cable drop. It doesn't look very professional, and what it does, it allows people to shop that very, very easily. If you list that you're going to put in 25 Cisco SPA 504s and that you're going to charge 140 bucks, that customer will find them for 135 and try and cut you out of the loop. So they will bypass you every step you can. If you have a very nice written up proposal, that's going to be very different than a quote or just a line item quote. You put in what the customer requirements were. How are you solving those requirements? What other features does it give them? What other benefits are they going to receive from that? And then at the end, it's just hardware, X amount, labor, X amount, and I'm done. They never shop it because they see that that is a professional done proposal, and given the same price as someone else who gave a line item quote, I will win that job every single time. It's what separates you from the other people, and the more professional that you look talking to the customers, the higher your odds of closing that deal. Given the same price, you will win every time if you come in looking more professional. Yeah. 847. No, it's the typical one is probably in the about 4 pages generally, maybe 5 for a really complicated one. If it's anything more than just a fairly simple IVR, I will go ahead and put that in there so that they go, wow, this looks like a lot of work. The more value I add to that proposal, again, the more I increase my odds of winning that job, because I'm showing them that I understood their requirements. Someone who's just throwing out a line item price, what are they really getting in the end? You know, it becomes a commodity versus a professional service. Yeah. I put it all in there. Yeah, I scope it all out so that they understand the level of work that I'm putting into it versus just throwing a price out there. Within the quote, I will list what pieces are being put in. There will be a hardware section, and it may be the solution will include a 3U server running such and such with a Digium 24-port PRI card and 25 Polycom 601 phones. Because they're probably picking out the phones. You know, I'm going to give them 2 or 3 options for phones. So I'm going to make sure that they understand, yes, those are the phones that I'm putting in there. So that alleviates me having to go back to do a line item because I said how much it was, but I'm not going to list the individual price that I'm charging for each individual phone. Because again, that lets them go out and start shopping that price. Now generally, at a reseller price, I'm going to buy that phone for less than they're going to be able to buy it for, and I'm going to probably sell it to them for what they can buy it for and still make a profit on it. So it doesn't do anybody any good to tell them what that price is unless you're just throwing out some retail price on there and you have your markup behind the scenes. But given a good, solid proposal, I have never once had a customer come back and ask to line item it. Yeah. Yeah. It happens. And hopefully, I'm not the first one. You know, with anything, I want to be middle of the pack to the last person to come in with a quote. Because A, you're going to be the most remembered, and I don't have to deal with them trying to take that quote to other people. But it does happen. And generally, again, if you're the one who had the best proposal that looked the most professional, you're probably going to get it in the end, given, you know, not much of a price variance. Because people don't buy products, or they don't buy from companies, they buy from people. And if you can develop that bond with that customer so that they have a trust in you that you are going to deliver something that they wanted that's going to solve their problems, that's who they're going to generally buy from, even if it's not based on price. I saw some surveys last year about this exact topic. 97% of people said that price was one of their top issues, but only 13% actually used it as a purchase decision. So, I mean, it's completely backwards. People think that price is very important, and it should be. I mean, if I go in at $20,000 and someone else is going in at $90,000, yeah, it's almost a no-brainer. Something's wrong with that price. But given a couple of grand difference, they're going to look at the people and say, can this guy solve my problems? Can I trust this guy or girl, can I trust them to solve my issues? Can I trust them to be there when I have problems? So people like to buy from other people, and that's just human nature. So if we can develop that bond with them, we're going to be much better off. And then let them shop. You know, it's going to happen out there, and you just deal with it. So it comes and goes. What about talking to your customer? Oh, yep, go ahead. I mean, you know, I don't deal that much with clients myself anymore, but